And a good Sunday morning to you. I'm Andrea Oliver. Welcome to this edition of Polk County Today. The question is, are leaders born or are they made? The debate continues in this area, and whether you fall on one level or another of this spectrum, my guest today says there are some invaluable tools that you can learn and utilize to take your leadership skills from good to great. Emily Rogers is back with us in studio. I think I'm going to give her her own key and password and everything. She is part of the family. As you know, we've had Emily on a number of times. She is founder of Emily Rogers Consulting and Coaching. She's a business consultant, executive coach, and retreat leader. Emily strategically advises and supports businesses, organizations, and individuals in growing and achieving their full potential in purpose and balanced ways. We're going to talk about that today. She's an adjunct leadership development instructor at Polk State Corporate College, a certified leadership circle profile coach. Prior to starting her business in 2013, Emily advised Fortune 100 brands, professional sports teams, and global nonprofits. And as we say, we're so excited to have her in studio visiting with us. Emily, thanks for joining us again for Polk County Today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Andrea. It's always just such a joy to be in your studio with you and chatting with your listeners on this Sunday morning. Thank you.
Well, you've had a really busy year. I've watched you. I see you going from place to place, doing your stuff and leading people. Tell me a little bit about the year that you've had and even leading up to where we are today.
Yes. So I'm doing some very meaningful and fulfilling work with leaders across Polk County these days, and working with executives and their teams and advising them on how to be more effective in their role as leaders and to how to have greater impact on their organizations and to lead more effectively as they manage their teams.
So we talked at the top about whether or not leaders are born or made. And I'm not even going to put you on the spot here, but what I am going to ask you is, regardless of whether they are one or the other, I know you believe that there are valuable tools that they can utilize to be super at being leaders, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe leaders are both born and made. Because I believe that we are all born with the innate ability to lead with excellence. And as we become elevated in roles as leaders in businesses and organizations and in our community, there's more at stake. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we have the opportunity to hone what I like to call the inner game of leadership as we are interacting with our teams and within the organizations and communities that we're leading.
So if there is an inner game of leadership, I'm sure there possibly is an outer game of leadership. Tell us what that is and how it differs from what you just mentioned.
Yes. So the outer game is what we talk about a lot. The outer game of leadership is the competencies that we bring to the game of leadership. It's our skills, our expertise, our background, our track record. It's the stuff that's on our resume and on our job description. And it's essential to our role as leaders, obviously. As we become elevated in an organization or in a business or in a community as a leader, there's more at stake. We're dealing with more complex issues. We're moving at a faster pace. There's more at risk, and there's also more opportunity. And that's when I begin to talk with leaders about honing their inner game. And when they can continue to play the outer game well, while honing that inner game of leadership, it expands their range as a leader and their capacity to lead with greater excellence.
I see it now. I can see folks drawing even closer, Emily, to their listening device so that they can actually get some insight as to what that is. But here is something I want to maybe just really draw out again before we get there. Haven't we all seen people with tremendous expertise in the outer realm, or what you call the outer realm, and you know, they have great resumes, they have great track records, the education is wonderful, but they are lousy at what they do. And so I think there is value and virtue to what you call the inner game. So Tell us where that comes from.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
and how we make it even more effective.
Yes. So the inner game is about the mindset that we bring to the professional field of play, if you will. When you think about a professional athlete or an Olympic athlete, their skills are refined
Yes.
like none other. Okay. And there's no doubt that they have the ability to perform on the athletic field of play when they get to that level, right? And what makes the difference for the athlete is the mindset that
Yes.
they bring onto that field of play. So with the leaders that I'm coaching, I talk about that leadership or professional field of play and the mindset that they're bringing to that.
Emily Rogers is our guest today, and she is founder of Emily Rogers Consulting and Coaching, here in studio with us today to talk about honing your leadership skills. And Emily, we're at that place where you says the mindset is key in making the outer game even work and sets you apart from just somebody that has a good resume. So you say we have to look inward before we can get outward then, or produce outwardly. What are some of the things inwardly that needs to be addressed?
Sure. So as a leader, I invite my clients to pause and reflect and assess how things are going on a regular basis. So what is the quality of engagement that they're bringing to their role as a leader? What is the energy and the emotions that are at play while they're in the act of leading? So not only what are they doing, who are they being as they're leading?
You know, I've had leaders who led by fear, and I found it extremely hard to respect those leaders. If you do this, you're gonna, you're gonna be written up. Or if you don't do, and the leadership was fear based, I had a real issue with respecting that individual.
Yeah, as leaders, I talk a lot about legacy, and how we want to be remembered. There's one thing to achieve and get a lot done and meet the goals and expectations of the organization. It's another to do it professionally and gracefully and eloquently, and be remembered in how you showed up and the emotions and the energy.
What happens when you have to? What happens when you have to say something really strong to a team member or give a directive that you know is not going to go over well? But you want to do it in such a way that everybody walks away feeling like a winner.
Sure.
Or is that possible?
I believe it is possible. And I believe it's important to provide very clear and concise and direct direction and feedback. And as you're honing your inner game, you learn how to do that without what I like to call the emotional wake. Okay? You talked about the threats, the fear. I talk about the carrot and the stick.
Okay.
And how do we lead not with a stick and not with a carrot, but lead through influence and
Wow.
lead through inspiration and lead through a conscious way of showing up as we're interacting with our teams and within our communities.
So you talk about leading through inspiration. Is that the kind of leadership you think that will lend itself to positive feedback?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. When we're leading from a place of inspiration and purpose and vision, the people within the organization that are inspired and influenced by that are just naturally motivated to get on board and to achieve at their highest potential, particularly when they believe in that vision and that inspiration and that purpose of the organization, and they can see in a very compelling way where the business or organization is going because the leader has communicated that well and has also shared with all of the individuals in a very specific way the role that they will play in helping the organization to get to where it's going.
As a matter of fact, Emily, one of the things you say is that leaders or great leaders focus on results that matter. So you say it is okay to not hide things, or I don't know if that's what, hide things behind, but to show where it is that what action will take you where, and to focus on that that result at the end. Is that a part of getting everyone to feel like a part of that vision?
Absolutely. Through an inspiring vision comes the conversation of what are the results that we're going to measure that matter, that are ultimately going to get us there. Because as leaders, we need to hold our team members accountable to the results that we want to achieve. And I believe they're more motivated to get there when they're inspired by the vision and they know exactly what they need to do to play a role in getting the organization to where it wants to go.
Emily Rogers is our guest today. She is the founder of Emily Rogers Consulting and Coaching. Before we get out of here today, I am certainly going to be sharing this lady's number, or have her share her number and possibly web address so that you can get a hold of her. She'll be an invaluable tool to your organization. And the good news is she is in the Central Florida area, real accessible. Emily, a lot of times people are thrust in positions. An opening becomes available in a company or in an organization, and you find yourself forced into leadership. As opposed to even being applying for that leadership role. What are some of the first key steps you must do to ensure that you will lead and lead successfully?
Sure. Yeah, I think in those cases, it's important to understand the cultural dynamics of the organization and what's needed from a cultural perspective or an emotional perspective within the organization. Are people feeling supported? Do they have clear direction? Are they being held accountable to the things that matter? Are results being measured in a meaningful way? And so taking a very global look at that and getting a pulse on the overall organization before diving in to assess who is doing well, excelling well in their job, and who might need some additional support. I think looking at the big picture first is really important before diving into the details and trying to implement a lot of change without taking that global perspective, that global nature of the organization into perspective.
I think sometimes the hardest place to lead from is the middle.
Yeah.
That person that finds themselves in the middle. So there are people below them, but there are people above them.
Yes.
And you talk about clear direction. How does that individual approach direction when they sometimes don't even know?
Yes. The folks in the middle of the organization are absolutely the most challenged from a leadership perspective because they are managing up.
Yes.
And they're managing down. And so if they aren't getting clear direction from their boss, they need to ask for it. And they need to understand what's going to be most impactful to the organization or the business and what their role specifically is in that and how they're going to be held accountable to that and evaluated against that. And from there, then, and only then, can they get really clear about managing down and what they need from the folks that are reporting to them and how they can support them in achieving whatever mission they want to
Emily, this
achieve
is
from
so
the middle.
good.
So they are absolutely in the most challenged position from a leadership perspective.
The big F word, and in the scope of leadership and business, we're talking about friend. How do you define for us the difference between friend and friendly? And as it relates to leadership.
Yeah, so I talk a lot about the importance of being relatable as a leader. And again, this speaks to expanding our range as leaders. Leaders who are, have been elevated into leadership positions are great at achieving results, obviously, and that's what got them there. It's the relating piece that oftentimes needs a little more attention. And again, that speaks to that inner game. How did they show up as a leader? What was the impact on somebody emotionally? Was it positive? Was it neutral? Was it negative? And what do they need to go back and perhaps revisit from a relating perspective?
You're not going to believe this. We're plumb out of time. Real quick, a number, a place where we might get a hold of you.
Your listeners can find me at emilyrogers.com. Thank you.
Yes, and I want to thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it's always a joy to be with you on a Sunday, and I'm particularly excited when I have great guests like Emily in studio with me. Thank you, Emily, and thank you. We'll talk again next week.
Thank you, Andrea.